Over the past few months, we've heard so much about the Pixel 10 series through dozens of prominent leaks. With Google finally officially launching the phones today, you might be thinking to yourself, what could possibly be exciting about these devices? Well, we actually did get a few surprises from the Made by Google event, and there is actually quite a bit going on with the lineup. Now that the cat's out of the bag, let me tell you 10 things you need to know about the Pixel 10 series, starting with number 1, pricing. When it comes to prices, Google left a lot of them alone, but there was one interesting change. First, the vanilla Pixel 10 remains unchanged, with the entry-level 128GB model costing $799. The Pixel 10 Pro, which is the same size as the Pixel 10 but with better hardware across the board, also sticks with the same $999 price. Once again, for the 128GB model. Things switch up a bit for the Pixel 10 Pro XL. This model's entry price increased by $100, now starting at $1199. Spec-wise, it's still just a bigger version of the Pixel 10 Pro, including a bigger battery, but it also has more storage. That $1199 price gets you 256GB of storage, which is technically the same price as the Pixel 9 Pro XL model with 256GB. In other words, Google didn't increase the price. It just removed the cheaper 128GB option. I'm not sure how to feel about this yet, but that's the deal. Finally, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold sticks with the same $1799 price as last year. That also comes with 256GB of storage at the base, which is the same as the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Now that you know what you'll spend, let me tell you about what you'll get with the second item on this list, core spec upgrades. The star feature of all the Pixel phones launched today is Tensor G5, the processor under the hood. I'm going to talk more about this later on, so stick around for that. Outside of Tensor G5 though, there are quite a few spec upgrades. Starting with the Pixel 10, the display got a higher peak brightness, getting all the way to 3000 nits now, slightly more than last year. The Pixel 10 also got a bigger battery, but only about 6% larger than the Pixel 9s. The battery also charges slightly faster at 30 watts now, which is quicker than what we saw on the Pixel 9. Wireless charging is also quicker at 15 watts. But I'm going to talk a lot more about wireless charging for all the phones in a bit. By far, the biggest difference for the Pixel 10 is the addition of a third camera lens, a 10.8 megapixel sensor with 5x optical zoom. This is the same telephoto we see on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and 10 Pro Fold, which is pretty cool. However, the trade-off here is that the primary sensor on the Pixel 10 is being knocked down to the 48 megapixel sensor we saw on the Pixel 9a. In other words, you're trading a new telephoto lens for a weaker main lens. This could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you use your smartphone camera. Moving on to the Pixel 10 Pro, it also has a higher peak brightness than before with 3300 nits. Google also claims this brightness is achieved without increasing power draw, but we'll need to test that for ourselves during our full reviews. Speaking of which, if you aren't already subscribed to Android Authority, you should do that now so you don't miss out on all of our upcoming Pixel content. The Pixel 10 Pro also got a slightly bigger battery. It also charges with a cable at the new 30-watt rate. One really notable upgrade though is the addition of a Thread radio right in the phone, allowing you to connect Thread devices with just the phone, which is pretty cool. Meanwhile, the Pixel 10 Pro XL got all the same spec upgrades as the Pixel 10 Pro, but with a few things being different. The battery capacity is much larger at 5200 milliamp hours, making this the biggest battery of any Pixel ever. It also charges even faster at 45 watts, making this the fastest charging Pixel phone ever. Finally, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold has some major upgrades. The cover display is bigger and brighter, and the inner display is also brighter and covered with more durable materials. The hinge is also better. But one of the coolest upgrades for this phone is that it has a full IP68 rating, making it the first widely available foldable to offer the same level of water and dust protection as flagship style phones. The Pixel 10 Pro Fold also has a significantly larger battery and faster wired charging. Interestingly, the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is also less wide and a tiny bit thinner than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. However, it actually weighs more. This is probably due to the larger battery and the addition of Pixelsnap. Wait, Pixelsnap? What's that? Well, that's next on the list. I mentioned wireless charging upgrades before, and it's true that all 4 phones charge at faster speeds and support Qi 2. The biggest thing about this though is Pixelsnap, which is basically like Apple's MagSafe, but for pixels. There are magnets built into the backs of all the phones, including the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. Using these magnets, you can snap the phones directly onto charging docks, just like you can do with iPhones. There are also magnetic accessories you can attach, and Google already has a bunch of stuff you can buy directly from them and from third-party partners. I don't know about you, But an Android phone as popular as the Pixel with built-in magnets has been something we've been wanting for a long time. Now that Google's taken the plunge, here's hoping Samsung, Motorola, OnePlus, and all the rest follow suit. As all the rumors suggested, Tensor G5 is the biggest change for pixel processing since Google first introduced Tensor on the Pixel 6. This time around though, Google has mostly cut out its dependence on Samsung's Exynos chips, making its own from scratch and hiring TSMC to produce it. This means Tensor G5 is now made at the same place that Apple, Qualcomm, and Nvidia make their silicon. Tensor G5 is also built on a 3nm process, which is the same build we see on Qualcomm's highest-end Android processor, the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Time will tell how Tensor G5 stacks up against the 8 Elite, but I doubt we're going to see Google beat it. Still, this is going to be the fastest, most energy efficient, and coolest running Tensor processor yet. Stay tuned, as we'll have a lot more to tell you about this both here and at AndroidAuthority.com. One thing Tensor G5 offers that Tensor G4 couldn't is advanced AI features, and one highlight of this is Google's new 100x zoom. On the Pixel 10 Pro and Pixel 10 Pro XL, you can now zoom way past 30x and get all the way to 100x. Note that this is not possible on the Pixel 10 or Pixel 10 Pro Fold. Those two phones can only go to 20x zoom. Now, Google is able to bring 100x zoom without upgrading much of the camera hardware in the phones. In fact, almost all the camera hardware is exactly the same as last year on both Pro phones, with a few minor differences. So, how does it work then? As one would expect, it's all about AI. When you zoom into 100x, Google does the typical digital cropping once you get past the 5x optical zoom the camera system offers. On-device AI processing then upscales that image to something that should look better than what you would normally get. The key thing here is that this happens on-device, meaning you don't need to have an internet connection to see your upscaled image. This is something that Tensor G4 can't do. This AI upscaling is slightly controversial though, because it's bringing in information that wasn't there. In other words, it isn't just refining the existing image to make it better. It is taking the image you actually captured and then adding in AI-generated elements to cover up the digital noise. So what you end up with is not a real photo, but a hybrid of real and AI-generated imagery. Thankfully, when doing this, Google saves both photos, allowing you to use the non-AI version if you want. We'll need to put this through some testing to see how it really does, but I can already tell that a lot of people are going to hate this on principle alone. If you're one of those folks, you'll be happy to hear about the next item on this list, which is C2PA watermarking. When you shoot any photo with a Pixel 10 device, your phone will automatically add credentials based on the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, or C2PA. Essentially, this adds an invisible watermark to your picture that lets people know how it was created. If you just shoot a standard photo, the metadata of the photo will say that it was captured with a camera, and you can see that metadata right in Google Photos. If you edit the photo using non-AI tools, it will also say that. And if you use any AI-based tools to tweak the photo, it will say that as well. This should allow anyone to quickly and easily check a photo to see just how real it actually is. It's cool that Google is doing this because we sorely need more companies to help us differentiate between what's real and what's fake. For the record, Samsung does this too on the Galaxy S25 series, so Google isn't being a trailblazer here, but it's certainly better than nothing. Unfortunately, we're not quite sure how secure this information really is. For example, could someone go in and edit the metadata of a photo so that it seems like it was captured with a camera, but in reality, it's heavily augmented with AI? We're going to need to test that out, and we've actually already got plans on how to do it. We'll keep you posted. Speaking of editing photos, Google has a new trick for that, called Ask Photos. If you want to edit a photo on your Pixel, you need to do the usual taps and swipes around the interface to make it happen. In Google's mind, this is way too complicated. That's why I developed Ask Photos. With this new Pixel 10 feature, you can just say what you want to do and your phone will make the edits. For example, you can open up a photo and say, fix the lighting in this picture, and Google will handle the rest. This works for existing tools too, like Magic Editor, and allows for multiple tweaks within one command. So you can say something like, erase the crowd and straighten this photo, and poof, it'll happen. This is all really cool, but wouldn't it be better if you just took the photo right the first time? Google has a new tool for that too, called Camera Coach. When you're taking a photo, you'll now get some helpful hints from AI to help you get the best image possible. Camera Coach will pop up and tell you about angles you should try or things you can do to create a better composition. It'll also give you ideas from the web so you can be inspired to create something cool based on other cool things that are already out there. If you do this enough, over time, you'll become a better photographer just by practicing with your AI coach. This is an early idea though, so Camera Coach is launching as a preview with all the Pixel 10 phones. It might be a little rusty for early adopters, but it'll certainly get better over time. Honestly, there are so many AI things Google is bringing to the Pixel 10 series, but this video is already really long and I can't cover them all. Let's wrap this up with the 9th item on this list, which is a new app called Pixel Journal. When the Pixel 9 series launched, we got a new app called Pixel Screenshots. Now, this new Pixel Journal app essentially takes that concept and applies it to your whole life. Using the app, you can record your thoughts in whatever way works best for you, like marking up each day with your overall feeling, recording voice notes, adding images from Google Photos, or even recording your travels with maps. Crucially, this is all private. The entire app is localized only to your phone and can be locked behind a pin. All the AI processing happens on device, so nothing you say here is ever uploaded to Google. If you like this or any of the other things I've discussed, you probably want to know how and when you can get one of these phones. That brings me to the 10th and final item here, which is availability. Pre-orders for all the phones open today, August 20th. The Pixel 10, Pixel 10 Pro, and Pixel 10 Pro XL will hit store shelves on August 28th. If you pre-order, you should see the phone land on your doorstep on or around that date. But what about the Pixel 10 Pro Fold? Just like last year, the new foldable is not going to land at the same time as the slab phones. Although you can pre-order the phone starting today, it won't actually be available until October 9th, which is more than a month off. This is a little disappointing, especially when you consider the phone is so expensive. So yeah, if you're excited about the Foldy Boy, you're gonna need to wait a bit. Those are 10 of the most important things you need to know about the Pixel 10 series. Like I said, there is so much more that I didn't have time to cover. For all the rest, be sure to check out AndroidAuthority.com and be sure to subscribe so you see all the other Pixel 10 content we have on the way. See you all soon.